Hi guys, it's Jeff at Slavens Racing. And this video is about my own personal 300. I've had a lot of requests for a video about my bike, and so here it is. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but it's a 2019 KTM 300 XCW TPI, and if you're in some other country besides the US, that would be an EXC TPI. Now, as you'll see in the background here, some other bikes. I've got several of them in my stable here, but this is the one that I ride the most. Anytime I'm heading out on a gnarly trail ride, I break out the 300 XCW. And I've got a 2020 on the way, but I'll have to put a video out on that in a couple of months after I've really sorted it out. So let's get back to this one. I'll start in the front here. So everything I do on these bikes is for functionality, to improve how the bike works, or the reliability of the bike, or possibly make it a little lighter, but everything is performance minded. You'll see there's almost no bling on this bike. I think the only bling would be maybe the graphics. I'm not a fan of bling. If you like it, I'm good with that. Doesn't matter to me. You're the one that's got to ride it. But last thing I'm going to do is bolt on a bunch of blingy stuff that usually has less performance than what you took off. And could be problematic, could cause a failure. So I stay away from those things. And although I like orange, I don't need my bike plastered with orange. So let's start up front here again. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. So down here, I've got a Bridgestone X30 front tire. It's an 8100. Currently, I've got a Nitro soft mousse in there, and I'm really enjoying that. I normally, for the last few years, I've been running nothing but tubeless, and I still have a tubeless in the rear tire, but I'm just testing this Nitro for now. I've got about 100 miles on it so far, and it's working very well. It's maintaining its feel. So in other words, it hasn't gotten any softer. So I've got these little tie down straps here on my hoist to hold it on here that kind of get in the way. But so here I've got some carbon fiber fork covers, and those are not for bling. I have those on there because those fork tubes are very thin. They've made them that way intentionally so that the fork can flex. In 2008, they made a really stiff fork. Made the bike handle very poorly. You could not get the fork soft enough to make it compliant because the fork tubes were so stiff. So these newer tubes, if you've got a guy running in front of you, especially a guy on a big 500 throwing some big rocks up at you, and you dent that tube, or if you fall down in a rock garden and dent that tube, well, there's over $400 in parts plus the labor. So it could be a $500–600 job. And you can save that hassle by just having on these fork guards, which I think they're about $60. They just snap on. You don't have to take the forks off or anything. Inside the forks is the MX Tech Slavens Mule Lucky Cartridge system. So it's a whole new internals for the forks. And that combined with the National Shock on the rear, the Slavens Mule MX Tech National Shock, have totally transformed the way this bike handles. The reason I've been riding XCs for the last few years is because a correctly valved and sprung XC has a very precise chassis that's very versatile, can handle whoops and jumps, smaller jumps, as well as the rocks and the roots. Whereas the XCWs have always been kind of a wiggly, wobbly, harsh on small bumps, mushy on everything else, kind of like riding a couch on two wheels type of a bike. That's why I have not been riding them for the last couple of years. And these new ones are not any different. So the difference between XCW and XC, the XC is kind of like a scalpel, and the XCW is more like a butter knife. It gets the job done, but it really leaves a lot to be desired in the suspension department. So with the Lucky cartridges up front and the National Shock in the rear, this bike is comparable to an XC that's correctly valved. I mean, the thing is pure magic now. I absolutely love it. I don't have the linkage to deal with as far as maintenance or hanging up on logs when you're crossing big logs. And or the weight of the linkage. Don't get me wrong, I still like XCs. I still have one. There's one right there. Actually, I own two of them. But I really like this chassis now that I've got the suspension working well. So from there, let's see, I mentioned the tubeless or the moose, the valving. I run a FMF fatty pipe. There are definitely some other good pipe options out there as well, and I'm probably going to do a video here before long, an updated video about pipes, where I'm going to test them. But I really like the fatty. It mirrors the stock power band, but it gives you more everywhere. Not a ton more, but enough more. And then I run the Eline pipe guard, the carbon fiber pipe guard. And I left that sticker on there just so my buddy Ron over there, wouldn't get all butt chapped. And for any of you guys that know Ron over there at Eline, send him a box of Kleenex for me, because he tends to like to whine a little. He needs a little help there. We don't want to leave Ronnie without a supply of Kleenex. So these pipe guards, they look great. They're very sexy looking. They work well on small tip overs and that kind of stuff. But if you hit something hard, the only thing that's really going to protect a pipe well is the pipe guard skin blade combination like we have from Emperor Racing. So back to the bike here. Up here you'll see the Trailtech digital fan kit. Definitely the best fan kit on the market. There's some other really junky ones out there available now. But the Trailtech is definitely top of the line. They use, I'm forgetting the name of that fan, but it's the same fan that KTM uses for some of their bikes that come with fan kits. And then you can adjust the temperature. I run mine at where it kicks in at 188. You can see in there the orange hoses. Those are from Samco. And I put those on there for reliability issues. I really don't care about the color or anything else, but the stock hoses, I've seen them split. They're very, very flimsy, and these Samco hoses are by far the best on the market. There's not even a close second place out there. They're an excellent product, made in Europe. And then you'll see the Slavens Mule S3 head. That's our own proprietary insert designs, the dome, part of the head, not the shell. And you'll notice right there a plug where the injector goes. Well, I've removed the injectors and relocated them with a Get race kit, and I'll get to that in a minute when I get to the other side of the bike. Over here you can see that I'm running the Carbon Up clutch cover. That's a fantastic product. It's by far the best clutch cover on the market for durability. Yeah, some of the aluminum ones might have a cooler look to them, but as far as reliability, there's nothing better than this. You cannot damage these. I've got a video showing me taking a big hammer to that. You can't hurt them. They're extremely tough. And behind the clutch cover is a Rekluse CX clutch. Another excellent product. All the Rekluse clutches are good. The regular EXP is a great product. The X and the CX and the Core, all those are excellent clutches. And to me, they're like cheating. I don't know why you wouldn't run one. Let's see, under here, I want to show you again that spark plug. And I put out a video last year that created some controversy. Everybody had to put their 2 cents in, and all the gurus from around the country that had no idea what they were talking about. Well, I run a BR7 EIX in there. That's the same plug we've been using in 300s for years. Definitely the best plug to use on them. And the new bikes no longer come with that projected tip plug that everybody thought was so cool and defended in their comments on my video. And now they come back with a regular BR8ES spark plug. Basically a lawnmower plug. The 2020s have gone back to just a plain old spark plug. Kind of tells you that maybe I was just a little bit on track there, guys. So here's the National Shock. I can't say enough good about this shock. It's absolutely amazing. It doesn't kick. It tracks extremely well, puts the power to the ground, has excellent bottoming resistance. There's enough adjusters on there to drive the most OCD person crazy. They don't come with that color spring. That's a special spring I had made for myself. I like to separate my bikes just a little bit from the pack. Down here I have the Fastway F4 pegs. I've used Fastway pegs for a long time. I've got them on several bikes. I used the F3s before. Now they've got the new F4, which is just a little bit bigger platform and a little bit different shape to it. And these are made out of stainless steel, so they're very tough. I'm not a fan of aluminum foot pegs unless it's on an adventure bike or a dual sport bike where you're not going to be banging on them. But if you're riding tight trails with rocks, roots, and stumps, I've seen quite a few of those aluminum pegs break right off when you hit something, and I've experienced it myself. And it's a royal pain in the butt to ride the rest of the day with one foot peg. Stainless steel pegs, these I have literally just hit boulders so hard that it kicked my bike sideways and the peg stayed intact. Right here you'll notice that this looks different than your bike probably. This is just a left-hand brake kit from Rekluse. I'm a big fan of left-hand brake kits. I was not for a long time, but if you're doing any bulldogging on hills or bushwhacking to where you want to have your tippy toes on the foot pegs so you don't bang them into rocks and stumps, or you're riding a lot of switchback trails, there's nothing like a good left-hand brake. It's really an advantage in those situations. And I really like it a lot on really slick days where it's either wet slick or dry slick, because you can finesse the rear brake better than you can with your foot. Let's see, back here we've got an FMF 2.1 silencer. Now you can see my bike's a little scratched up. I've been doing some bushwhacking and dragging it under downfall trees and things like that. And I took the sticker off of it right from the beginning because I knew I'd be scraping it off and then it would leave a different mark on the muffler showing where the sticker was, so I just took it off. And down here I run the plastic swing arm guards that we sell. And those are just to keep the bike looking nice for when I sell it. You can pop them off and then you got a nice shiny swing arm. Because when you're riding in rocks, especially switchbacks that have a big boulder in the middle of them or something, you can really gouge up your swing arm. And then I run this zip tie rear disc guard. We sell a bunch of different disc guards and they're all good. They all get the job done. I just like the looks of this one. I've been using the Bulletproof for years and it's definitely a top line product. This is a little bit lighter weight. I'm really kind of weight conscious. I don't get carried away with it. I don't obsess about it, but I do like to keep my bike light if I can. And there's nothing like taking a nice light bike when you bring one home from the showroom and you're like, whoo, this baby is light and I can flick it around, and then before long you put a bunch of junk on it. Now you have a nice heavy bike that doesn't flick around so easily. It's harder to handle. On the back I run the stock brake pads with the phenolic insulator. Those are expensive pads, but that insulator makes them worth the money. You can also transfer that to a cheaper pad if you want to. And then in the front I use the Power Parts brake pads. I use the full metal pads. I don't use the organics. If you want a little better feel, a little less touchy brake, well then you can use the EBC red pads. That's a very popular pad. And in the back wheel here, you can see that it's got a VE33 IRC S, which is the gummy version. And I really like this tire. It's an excellent tire. It holds up well and gives excellent traction. I mean, it does its job. It's hard to beat. I'll be doing a video on that before long, comparing it with some other ones. And you can also see there I've got the tubeless system in it. I like to regulate the tire pressure on the back. If I'm going to go out and do some goat trailing type stuff, I want to lower the pressure. If I'm going to do some faster stuff and I want more stability, then I'll up the pressure a little bit. For the gas tank, it's a Cherbys 3.1. And this bike will easily do 100 miles with that tank on there. And the Seat Concepts comfort seat, that's one of the first things I change when I get the bike. So speaking of that, I'm sorry this video is going to get a little lengthy, but I don't know any way around it. But speaking of the seat and some of the other things, when I get a new bike, the very first thing I do is ride it at least twice, two usually reasonably short trail rides in bone stock form, exactly the way I got it from the dealer. And I do that because I want to establish a solid baseline of how the bike works. I get the first impression on that first ride, and it gives me a lot of information during that first ride. But I go out and ride it at least once more to just kind of confirm those first impressions. I've been testing bikes for 48 years. 48 years, guys. I've been in the industry a long time. I worked on a number of factory teams. I worked for KTM, Husqvarna, Suzuki, and Yamaha. And I did engine development for those companies, engine and carburation development. Let's see here. So we'll go back to the front here for a minute. So I've got the STR speed bleeders, absolutely the best speed bleeders on the market. All the rest of them leak. These do not. And when I say leak, they leak on the rebound, the extension of the fork. They suck air into the fork. And so then when you push the button, you get air out and you think, whoa, it's really working. But no, it's a bleeder problem. And up here you can see I've got a Garmin Montana GPS. And I don't always use that, but if I am out doing some exploring or going to the part of the country that I'm not familiar with, I'll load some maps up and use it. If I'm riding trails that I've ridden before, I just leave that at home. So just one more thing that can get damaged. And you can see I run the Stout mount by MotoMinded. Fantastic product. You can check it out on our website. We've got a separate video just about that. And then I use the BRP Universal Handguard Mounts. I'm trying to get a better angle here where maybe you guys can see them. And if you want a really strong system that doesn't bend up every time you fall down, this is it. So in the end, I use the System Tech Racing bar end mounts that thread into the end of the handlebar. And then I use the Cycra, I don't know what the hell they call them, the Cycra Probends. And up here where I mount them to the handlebar, let's see if I can get a view of this here. So right here you can see in there I've got two washers in there. So those are just fiber washers, or you could use some plastic washers. And the reason I put those in there is to allow the handguard to pivot right here. Because, most of you youngsters weren't around when the aluminum bars first came out, but one of the first advertised benefits about them was that they flexed. And they helped with the vibration and the trail hits, the small trail junk, by flexing. And then when you have a solid mount here and here, it completely locks up the bar to where it can't flex. I rode a guy's bike the other day where he had these things. I think he must have torqued them to 50 pounds, and I was just riding them around in the field behind my shop, and I couldn't believe how much it changed the feel of the bike. It made it just feel so rigid in the front. So just by a few little things like that, you know, you can make your bike have a more comfortable feel. You know, easier on your hands, your elbows, your shoulders. Right here I've just got my Colorado OHV permit, and that's just on a little carbon fiber piece that clips on there. I got another one for Utah, just swapping back and forth. And there you can see my Rekluse left-hand rear brake. And then here's the map switch for my Get ECU. The Get ECU is under the seat. No need to pop it just to see that. It's just a green box. And this gives you 2 map options. So I'll make a separate video on the Get ECU. I mean, it's an excellent product, but I'm not going to get into that on this video. I've got a temperature gauge here because I do so much testing that I constantly want to monitor the engine temp. And I like to see what it's doing in other situations, like cruising down a road or on a cool day, a hot day, whatever. I document a lot of information just from that one little gauge. I'll probably do something separate on that in the future. Down here I'll show you, if you can see in there, those red pieces. That's the relocation kit called the race kit that moves the injectors, the fuel injectors, from the side of the cylinder, from the transfer ports, down to the reed cage area. And it definitely gives more low end that way and a smoother power band, so smoother transition from low to mid, because it gives it, you know, the fuel more time to atomize by shooting it in the correct place, which is in the intake rather than the transfers. Right here, this silver piece, this is just a guard for the TPS. I worked with System Tech Racing and had them develop that for me, for our customers, because the TPS behind there is a $400 part. And I had some requests for a guard for that, and I originally wasn't going to do it until a guy told me he fell over in a rock pile and broke his, and then had to tow his bike home. Right here, this is just the cable for my left-hand rear brake. For gearing, I run the stock gearing, 1350. I've never been much of a fan of gearing bikes down unless you absolutely have to. Now on the XCs, the first gear is so tall, if you want to trail ride them, then you really kind of need to change the gearing a little bit. But on the XCWs, they've got a grandma or a granny first gear in them. And I know a lot of guys gear them down, and that's because they don't have enough horsepower. Their bikes don't run well enough. Well, my approach to that has always been, my entire career, is to pump up the motor instead of gear it down. You know, if you got a wimpy motor, then fix it. Don't gear it down to accommodate the wimpy motor. Let's see, AXP skid plate. This is their Xtreme version. And we've been selling AXPs for quite a while, and I've worked with them on developing these, improving them, improving the fit, the durability. We were the original importer in the US for these. Great product, comes out of Europe. Trying to think what I'm missing over here, guys. I don't work with a monitor or a script or anything like some guys do. I don't really care for those polished slick willy videos. Right up here are the bulletproof radiator guards. In my opinion, there's not even a close second place for radiator guards. We sell a lot of different brands, and the other brands sell well, but these are in a class of their own for fit, They have a perfect fit for strength. You get the front impact and you get side protection. For some reason, guys think they have to have that strap behind the radiator that some guards have to get side protection. Well, those straps are nothing but a pain in the ass. They just make it difficult to work on your bike, and they really don't do anything for protection. So these are locked into the frame. It's a very rigid system. Gives you side protection. They've got a radiator, a bottom radiator tank cover on them now. It's incorporated into them. This area right here, which really protects the bottom of the tank. And then, I do a lot of little things on my bikes to make things fit better and work better. You can probably see right here, I've cut a little notch in this carbon fiber pipe guard, and that's because, the two products didn't mate together that well. Eline didn't make their pipe guard to fit these radiator guards, and they didn't make the radiator guards to fit the pipe guard. So, and I could have just crammed it on there and it would have been fine, but I don't do it that way. I don't like it that way. So I just got out my porting tool. You could do it with a Dremel or a number of different tools, and I just cut a kind of like a U-shaped cutout in there so it would fit better. I see a lot of bike builds on the internet, especially from some of their big box companies, and they just bolt a bunch of garbage on them. Especially it really chaps my butt when I see them bolt on cheap Chinese wheel assemblies just to sell wheels when they're actually downgrading the bike instead of upgrading it. And so I really avoid that. There's nothing wrong with KTM wheels. You take care of them, they work very well. I pound the hell out of them in the rocks every weekend, but I keep them maintained and they hold up just fine. Oh, let's see here, what am I forgetting? So inside the airbox right there, I just use the single-use air filters by ProFilter. They're $10 a piece retail, and I don't have to change the filter that often during the year, so I have no problem with just using those throwaway type filters. My bike is plated because I do have to hop on roads to tie trails together. And I'd like to apologize again for this video being so long, but there's a lot on this bike to show you. I think that's about it. Let me just look at it one more time here, but I think I've covered most of my bases here. So I'll go back to the engine for just a second. The combination of the GET ECU and the S3 Slavens mule head gives it a lot more low end and a much better transition into the mid-range, pulls stronger everywhere from bottom to top, and just makes the bike more rideable, easier to ride. Guys say, oh, I don't need more horsepower. Well, you're probably right. You don't need more horsepower. What you do need is more torque. Because with torque, you can get that grunt. You can, a hill now that you have to kind of rev it in first gear, you can go up in second, or maybe you go up in second, now you can pull it in third at a lower RPM to where you have more control. The torque makes them easier to ride, not harder to ride. Everything I do is to make the bike easier to ride, easier to handle, easier to maintain, and to keep it reliable. I've been doing this a long time. Last thing I want to do is constantly work on my bike. Well, guys, I think I've about covered it there. I'm sure I've forgotten something. I always do in every video I make. If you have questions, you're welcome to email me at info@slavensracing.com. Please don't, hammer me too hard with a bunch of different posts on every different forum out there, such as YouTube and Facebook and everything else, because I can't monitor all those different sites. Just email me if you have a question. And I'm glad to answer them. If you don't get a response, a timely response, well, then email me again or call us. Sometimes I don't get your emails. Sometimes I spend time typing out a response and I send it and it gets bounced back because there's something wrong on your end. Sometimes I'm just out of town riding, having a good time. So if you really want to get a hold of me, make a little bigger effort and send a second email or pick up the phone and call the shop. We're one of the few companies that answers their phone with knowledgeable people. And we're always glad to help. I mean, we go way out of our way in a lot of situations to help people, and we're glad to do it. Totally glad to do it. So call if you need help. I'm also going to list below in the description section of this video, right below the video there, I'll put links to everything that's on this bike. And if you have a comment, you're welcome to just post it there on the bottom of the YouTube video. You know, if you have nothing else to do other than be snarky and nasty, well then find some other YouTube channel to spend your time on, because I'll just delete you and block you from the channel. I don't have time for nasty people, and I don't care to even be around them, so I resolved that quickly. And guys, I hope you get out and ride. You know, ride more, work less. Become a trail ambassador. Work on your trails. Don't tear them up. Don't turn nice, narrow single tracks into big blown out messes. Go to trail meetings. Talk to the Forest Service. Be nice to the other trail users. Do whatever you can to help keep our trails open. I hope this video has helped you. I'm sorry it's so long. That's all for now.